The LA Clippers are back, and the sign of being back is Media Day, and that was on Monday, and we got a lot of great sound bites, let me tell you. Kawhi sounding off just a bit on questions related to load management and resting. Some Russell Westbrook positivity for the first time in a Clipper Media Day, and Ty Lue giving some potential lineup hints. Gonna be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA and going into my 19th season as a Clipper fan, and I guess it's just begun because it was Media Day on Monday. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where you need to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video here on Locked On Clippers, your only 5-day-a-week Clipper podcast. And right now is Media Day, or should I say on Monday it was Media Day. And I got some big-time quotes for you here this Tuesday. Man, some that made me happy, some that made me a little not so happy. We'll get into it, from Kawhi to Russell Westbrook, Ty Lue, and you know what? Paul George, Ivica Zubac, Terrence Mann, Nico Batum, might just save that for another episode later this week, because there were so many things said at this media day that were just, ready to be dissected here on Locked On Clippers. So let's get right into it with Kawhi Leonard, the main man, who, by the way, looks a little slimmer, just like all the pictures we've seen this offseason, keeps emphasizing that he's healthy and ready to go and feels good. Talked about how the torn meniscus was a cleaner process than the ACL. And man, Kawhi, I'm excited for it. If he's fully healthy to start the season, and I hope it lasts, of course, knock on wood, man, we still got one of the best players in the league. It seems like there's going to be no difference. I think him slimming down might, I wouldn't say make him that much quicker, but make him maybe a step quicker than he was. He really did put on a lot of muscle, it seemed, before this past season. And it didn't really make him any worse or any better, in my opinion. He was still really, really good. I think he was maybe a step slower, but that's very normal. I think that's more to do with the fact that he's coming off an ACL tear, more so than the weight he gained. But seeing him slimmer, seeing him good, seeing him emphasize that he was healthy, as I've emphasized several times, because that's what the Clipper organization is preaching right now. That's what everyone's saying. Ty Lue, Steve Ballmer, Paul George, Kawhi himself, that he is feeling good. And that means that I'm feeling good. But there was some real passion today, it seemed. Or at least, yeah, I guess that's the word I'll use, passion, from Kawhi kind of standing up for himself. And it was partially because the first three questions that were asked to him on Monday were related to resting, load management, trying to play in every game, how important is health. But it seemed like it was more tailored towards the emphasis of playing every game like it was his choice, more so than the fact that he's been injured. Now, this is a very touchy subject, it seems, for a lot of people. I've obviously talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast and on my own show. So I'm not going to go too crazy about it, but let's just say this. Kawhi really spoke for the first time, in my opinion, with real, on the defense for himself, which I actually like. And he even went as far as to say, quote, "If the league is trying to mock what I did with the Raptors, it should stop, because I was injured during that whole year. No league policy is helping me to play more games." Now, the reason why that came up is because Kelly Johnson, that was on this show not too long ago, congrats to Kelly being at Media Day yet again, love to see it, asked Kawhi about how he felt about the new league resting policy that was implemented just a couple weeks ago, which meant that you can't rest two of your star players in the same game, but there was an exemption for players with a relevant injury history in which Kawhi absolutely qualifies for. So it really doesn't matter for the Clippers. It doesn't really apply in our case. But Kelly asked him about it, and he had no idea about it in typical Kawhi fashion, which I thought was hilarious. And he was basically like, what's the policy? And they told him to some degree, and he kind of was like, nah, when I'm healthy, I play. I want to play basketball. And he was very adamant about that. So I like that he was kind of coming with that energy, because that leads me to believe that this season is going to be more of an emphasis for him to play every game that he can. And he's not coming off an ACL tear. I thought maybe the meniscus tear was, obviously it's not, I know it's not as bad as an ACL tear, but it's still a pretty relevant big injury that he's coming back from. I didn't think he would be, the tone would be this much more positive than last season. But even he talked about last season how it was annoying that he came off the bench to start, that he wasn't getting those minutes that he expected. And he was talking about, getting into a rhythm minutes-wise and getting that right away so that he can kind of get into his bag of playing heavy minutes, because that's what he's going to do. He's a superstar. He's our best player. So I love the way he was speaking with that kind of conviction that, look, when I'm healthy, I'm going to play. Now, here's where I push back just a bit. Kawhi he said the load management thing with the Raptors, right, that he was injured. Well, he did the same thing the first season with the Clippers. And from what I knew, all the news that was coming out at that time was that Kawhi Leonard had quad tendinopathy, I think that's how you say it. And he legitimately it was not a smart idea for him to play back-to-backs for his knees. And we understood that when we got him. And that's what he did his first season with the Clippers, and he was healthy pretty much throughout. And when I say healthy, I mean the fact that he was healthy enough to play at an all-NBA level. He obviously isn't 100%. He's dealing with something. I'm not denying that. But that was the regimen. And then in 2021, he made an effort to try to play every game, and he was playing back-to-backs. He had a couple of little injuries. He had that face injury early on Christmas against Denver, and then he had that foot injury, which caused him to miss one of the only game he was load managed, I guess you could say, in a back-to-back, or injury managed against the San Antonio Spurs in that season. But overall, he played the other back-to-backs, and he just had that foot injury towards the end of the regular season in 2021. But then this past season, he only played the last back-to-back, and then the one against Memphis where he randomly was out in the middle of the game, and even Ty Lue was blindsided. So he didn't play the back-to-backs. Now, he was coming off a major injury. Is he coming off a major enough injury that he's on that same regimen? Because the way he was talking was as if he's playing every game, and there's not going to be that back-to-backs thing. I would be shocked if that's the case. But it's like, why say that then to me? You know what I'm saying with Kawhi? Saying, when I can play, I can play. Like, no, we know that you can play back-to-backs, but it's just not smart. So why is he just saying that? I don't know. It's all just, I don't take everything that's said on Media Day to the bank. One, because last year the Clippers said very similar things with a similar sort of confidence, and we're focused in this and that. I think this year they're more genuine because they really did get humbled in a way, even though they lost because of injuries mainly. But the fact that they just had a rough season, you just had to have been watching the Clippers consistently or been around it to know how rough last season was relative to the expectation that the fans had, the media had, and rightfully so. We had a pretty good team. A couple guys declined, but we still had a good team, and they weren't healthy in the playoffs. But, we got Russell Westbrook because we felt like we really needed something. And that's still debated to this day whether or not some Clipper fans feel like we needed Russ or not. But at the end of the day, I love the conviction that Kawhi was speaking with. However, I don't believe that every single time he can play, he plays in the regular season. In the playoffs, of course, I don't think he load manages. That would be ridiculous and insulting his competitive nature. but I obviously think he plays every time he can in the playoffs. I thought, though, that he was on a strict regimen. That's why load management, the term, was coined. I'm not saying he started it. I am aware that Greg Popovich was doing that in the mid-2010s, early 2010s even. I remember that famous game against Miami. I think it was the 2012-13 season where he rested everyone in Miami, and I thought it was despicable when I was in high school. I remember that. Kawhi Leonard was the first one that he was on a strict regimen where we knew league-wide he wasn't going to play one of the games of back-to-backs. And he did that his first two seasons with the Clippers. His first season with the Clippers and his only season with Toronto. He didn't do it in 2021, only at the end one time when he had the foot injury. And then this past season, he did do it again coming off the ACL tear. So the way he was talking, though, he seems like he's going to play every game. But listen, if you get it from me, if I had to bet, and I'm not a betting man, but if I had to bet, he's still not going to be played on back-to-backs. And I don't know if it's fully going to be his choice. I think the medical staff is going to advise it, and I think there's not going to be much pushback, like there usually isn't. At least as far as I know. I still believe these players have pushback to some degree with these injuries, because you can't just say to me that it's player empowerment for everything except for this. Jason Tatum has spoken about overruling the medical staff. Damian Lillard has spoken about it. I'm pretty sure Paul George has to some degree. But Kawhi, obviously, he's had so many injuries, and it's a unique case. So I'm okay with the not playing the back-to-backs thing. I've said that many times. I don't want to get that twisted. But I hope he plays in the other games. And I don't know why he said that today, if he is going to still be on the back-to-backs thing. But we'll just have to see. I like how passionate he seemed to be. And obviously, I don't mean he was yelling or anything like that. It's on the LA Clippers YouTube channel. So check it out if you want to see it, the Kawhi Leonard portion of the media day. But he seemed very adamant in defending himself, and I really liked seeing that for once, because he doesn't usually speak up, and people talk about him so much. Sometimes Kawhi will just be trending randomly in the middle of the summer, and I'm just like, it's so funny. Like, Kawhi doesn't even know what's going on. He didn't even know about the resting policy, and he was like the poster boy for every single media outlet that was reporting about the league instituting that. I think that's hilarious that he had no clue. He's like, what do they say? Anyway, coming up, Russell Westbrook. How about some really clear-cut positive vibes? All smiles from number 0 in his first Clipper Media Day. Going to be talking about the best of Russ coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Ibotta. The weather's getting cooler, and that means it's time to stock your closet with winter clothes. Doubt it. If you're listening to this, you're most likely from Los Angeles or Southern California. Shout out to everybody who's not. But you don't really need that. But the holidays are near, which means you might have a long list of gifts you need to buy. Don't just spend money on everyone else without getting anything in return. Use Ibotta to start getting cash back today. The average Ibotta user earns $100 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. Or you could use your cash back to buy the flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, maybe the Clippers regular season opener against Portland. How about it? Or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Just download the Ibotta app now and use code LOCKED to start earning real cash back. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow on the show, going to be talking about 3 reasons why not getting Jrue Holiday was not the worst thing in the world. And when I say that, I mean it was better for the team. I don't know if I even believe that. Let's just go with 3 reasons why it's not that big a deal. But let's talk about Russell Westbrook, who I was absolutely ecstatic to just see wearing Clipper threads for a training camp, like going into a full season of Russell Westbrook. I tweeted this later, I should say, on Monday night, but I really mentally prepared in the back of my mind for the Russell Westbrook experience to not be a long one, not be an extended one, not be a one that went into this season, but to have Russell Westbrook re-sign for such little money. And he talked about how money's never been a driving force for him and how he was just really happy to be back with the Clippers because of the way he was treated, the way he was embraced with open arms, and he just feels at home. His kids can stay at home, his family's here, and how he just was all smiles. It was just night and day compared to when he was with the Lakers in last year's media day. He looks fantastic in Clipper colors, I might add. And it just fits him. That mentality, that underdog kind of mentality, even though Russell Westbrook has accomplished so much in the game, I feel like he just plays with that chip on his shoulder that we need, especially in a team like this. And everyone's been so positive about the way they talk about Russ's leadership, and they keep using that L word, leadership with Westbrook. And I think the reason why they're saying it so much is because he just is a natural vocal leader on and off the court. And Kawhi and Paul lead in a different way. And the stands of Kawhi and Paul get offended when I say that. Again, I have no bias here. Kawhi is our best player. Russell Westbrook is our most vocal leader. Paul George, probably my favorite of the three. But I just want the Clippers to win games. I don't care about who's this and that, who gets the credit. But I love seeing Russell Westbrook in such great spirits. And he seems so comfortable around our media. So shout out to our media as well. I just love seeing the positivity. The way he was joking about, I think it was Law Murray that asked him about how the Rock the Cradle celebration started. And he was talking about how I'm a big guard. And when I see a guard guarding me, a little point guard, I put him in the post. And I let him know you're too small. So I rock the cradle. So that's classic. And I just love to see Russ so positive. But one thing he really got criticized for, and of course, our neighbors down the hall were the ones going crazy about it. But he had a quote, and of course, all the aggregation accounts got it all over the place. And it was Russell Westbrook saying he does not believe in championship or bust. He said, the championship or bust, to me, that's not a real thing. That's a thing that people make up. You could accomplish a lot more. You can create brotherhood. You can learn a lot more about people. Now, people took that quote and related it to the just go have fun. That classic quote that went viral about Russ in the Laker locker room when LeBron was making an impassioned speech about winning or something. And Russ was like, just no matter what, have fun. At the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, have fun. And I don't know. Everything that came out of Russ when he was a Laker just seemed like he was uncomfortable. Like, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Clipper fan. You can go back and check my own personal channel and see what I was saying. And I think Laker fans, if they don't have an agenda hating on Russ, they would agree. He just seemed uncomfortable. He lost his confidence. With the Clippers, he seems much more like himself. And I think that comes from nothing more than the fact that no, it is more than just the basketball fit, but largely because of the basketball fit, largely because we've given him that ability to be the starting point guard with the ball in his hands. We've encouraged him to have the ball in his hands and create for us. Where with the Lakers, LeBron and him, it just two guys that are fantastic creators. And that wasn't the best fit for them. For us, it's perfect for what we need. And Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, is perfect for what we need. And besides that, of course, the media, the fact that it was kind of a redemption arc for Russ, it all worked out in his favor. And of course, the team, more than anything, Ty Lue, the way they got him on board, the way Ty Lue was able to have him sit out a close game and clap on the bench and be the biggest cheerleader still on the bench. This is a guy that won MVP and averaged a triple-double 4 times in a season. And he is sitting on the bench when he's still capable of playing at an all-star level in some games, watching other guys close the game, and he is still positive about it, even though across the hall that was not the case. And that's a testament to our team and our culture that we have developed lately in the Steve Ballmer era. But the quote was getting destroyed because, as I said, people likened it to that quote about just have fun, like Russ doesn't care about winning. But look, I get it. It doesn't sound great. But Russell Westbrook, the thing about him is, the reason why I don't get mad is because 90% of the time, I still know I'm getting a very intense individual every single game, a guy that's going to play every single game. And in the playoffs, he played so hard every single night. And there were games where he was just all over the place, like playing with this different fire that we just haven't seen from a Clipper since like Patrick Beverly, like an emotional fire since like Pat Bev and Montrez. But he's better than those two guys. And it's just special. And the way, he's from LA. He has so many friends and family in the crowd, so many fans in the crowd. And then, of course, Clipper fans love him. I mean, he won us over. Even the fans like myself. I'm a huge Westbrook fan, by the way, as if you can't tell. But I was anti getting Russ. I didn't think he was playing good basketball. And a large reason is because, again, sometimes even I make mistakes. I underestimated situation, environment, what that can do to a player's psyche. Confidence. And that's something we should never underestimate, because these are even the great Hall of Famers like Russell Westbrook, that's going to be a Hall of Famer, they're still humans at the end of the day. And it's very big when you feel wanted anywhere. But of course, Laker fans and all these people took that quote and ran with it like he doesn't care about winning. I can tell you he cares about winning. He's the most available of the three players we've got. He's just year 16, and he is still as athletic as anyone, and he plays with a fire. He plays with a fire that I don't doubt that he's going 100% to win. He might not always make the best decisions on the court. He might miss shots. But how many people have said, besides Laker fans, and look, they have their right to have their opinion. It was not a pretty experience there. We all saw it if you watch games consistently, Laker games. But every other fan base, Washington, Houston, OKC, that had him, they can all say that the one thing they're not going to fault from Russ is that he's going to give it his all when it matters. I do think it's a little overestimated, like how hard he tries every game this late in his career, the last couple of years. There have been games where defensively he has not given his all. He has not really sat down. He's not really fought over screens and chased the way he did in the playoffs against Kevin Durant and against the Suns, for example. But in the playoffs, I've never said that Russ didn't win because his effort wasn't high enough. It was more about his decision-making and all that, and I love that about him. But not saying you can say that about Kawhi or Paul either. Kawhi and Paul, and besides the bubble, let's remove that from our memory. But besides that, yeah, of course I wouldn't say Paul George didn't try hard enough in the 2021 run. Of course, he played his butt off. Kawhi was playing very hard before he got hurt, and that's the last time we've seen him in the playoffs together. But coming up, oh, by the way, before I ended on Russ, another thing he did that was just awesome that we heard about was he organized a mini camp in Vegas, and the teammates who came worked out with him, dined at night, and when he went out to dinner, apparently he gave everyone a new iPhone 15 Pro Max. That's a leader right there. A guy that cares about his teammates. I heard a couple players weren't there. I think Zubats was out of the country. There was no Robert Covington, no Marcus Morris, and you barely saw any of Marcus Morris today at Media Day. And I'm hoping that could mean something for the future. And coming up, Ty Lue hinting at a little something about the guy that everybody wants to play instead of Marcus Morris, and that's Robert Covington. Going to be talking about what was said about him coming up. All right, so to close the show, Ty Lue. I thought he had some really great quotes today, and the first one was... Actually, before I get into the first one, I think the one thing I need to emphasize more than anything that was just repeated with every single player, and of course Ty Lue, health. Health, health, health. It's the Clippers versus health all the time. And this season, it just seems like, oh my God, I really hope I'm not wrong on this one, but it just seems like it can't get much worse than last year. But I always say these kind of things and it ends up getting worse. I keep knocking on wood, but it really feels like it might not be as bad. And everybody had this kind of attitude that was like, we really feel disappointed about the way it's gone. I mean, if it's a Zubats, I'll probably talk about that in a future episode this week. But he literally apologized to the fans. And it seems like it's a team-wide thing to just really go harder in the regular season and try to be available more. And when you are available, give it a better effort consistently than we saw last season. And honestly, I really hope they do. the thing about Media Day is every single team's fans are going to be so excited. It's like the first day of school. Every team is 0-0. People got their new jerseys on. I mean, it's the start of a new season. It's when you get back to work and the dream begins again. And everyone's going to be positive. You're going to get a lot of positivity in the quotes on Media Day. And the fans, a lot of them are just going to run with it. And I think a lot of fans are very gullible. I am not going to believe anything these guys say after what happened last season, after I was sitting here a year ago saying 60 wins, top 3 seed for sure. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to have lower expectations this season. I think this team is still capable of great things, but it's the Clippers versus health, and I'm going to cherish every game that we have a healthy Westbrook, Kawhi, and Paul George playing. You're going to hear it on this show, and I really, really hope we have much better luck this season, and I hope the seriousness thing comes from, first, the medical staff, trying to get Kawhi and Paul George on the court as much as they can, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George being on the court as much as they can, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, mainly Paul George. Kawhi Leonard, when he plays and he's healthy, he's awesome. Paul George playing more like he says he's going to play, back on his bully stuff. Russell Westbrook having a great season, although that has nothing to do with seriousness. Russ is going to be serious. And then Ty Lue, rotation-wise. And that leads me perfectly into what was said on Monday about Robert Covington. And Ty Lue basically apologized about Rocco and said Rocco deserved to play a little bit more. That's my fault that I didn't give him a stronger opportunity. Now, here's the thing. I love to hear that, and I hope that means he's going to play more this season. But he emphasized and re-emphasized, because we heard him say it a ton last season, that it was just a tough decision when you're such a deep team. Well, I hope this season, with Marcus Morris seeming like he's distanced himself more from the team, just from the outside looking in. I have no sources on that, and I have no sources on what I'm about to say. But I'm hoping that this is leading up to Robert Covington, especially being younger, and especially with the tough second half of the season that Mook just had. Robert Covington is now going to be the guy that gets more minutes at that spot than Senior, or takes his minutes. And Senior is going to be the one that's sacrificed and is going to be that third string when guys are load managed or don't play. I really hope that's the case. I hope that statement is a hint, but I don't know if it is. I don't know what to believe after last season. They sold us a lot last season. They didn't live up to it. And we're not just talking about the injuries, the basketball that was being played. We hope to see better this season. And listen, the franchise, Ty Lue, Lawrence Frank, they've admitted it. They've admitted what I've been saying and what I said all of last season. The team did not play to the best of their ability. We saw in 2022 what the team can look like when they're just playing hard every single night. And there were more games where we got blown out and had to wave the white flag than vice versa. So that's not normal for a team with championship expectations, and it seems like those expectations are still alive and well, as they should be with the roster that we have. And then I got to give a big shout out to one of our former guests, and of course, Clipper beat writer Joey Lynn. He went in swinging on this one, and I could not be more proud of the guy, because it's just awesome having someone that we remember being such a big fan and still is a big fan, but obviously now is on the beat. Got to keep that level of professionalism, but he really did come out and say with conviction, have you considered, with Kawhi and PG being so versatile, being able to play up Terrence Mann? I thought he was going to say Terrence Mann or Norman Powell, just kind of give him like that leeway, give him a guard to throw in there, but he straight up said Terrence Mann at the 2, which is like what we talked about on the show when he came on, and what I've emphasized over and over again. I think Terrence should start with those guys to guard the best player on the other team, because he's an off-ball play finisher that would thrive with those guys. I think giving him and Russ more minutes would add to our athleticism and pace. And more Terrence just equals better Clipper basketball. That's what we've seen over the last 3 seasons. That's just blatantly obvious. I love that he asked that. And Ty Lue smiled and said, "You're pretty smart. It's a possibility. It's a possibility." You know, he basically said we're so versatile and this and that. But when he said you're really smart, you know, that's not a guarantee that he's going to do it, but that definitely means it's being talked about, and you would expect these are smart people. Ty Lue is not dumb. They're obviously talking about it. Whether that's the route they go, I don't know. I really hope, and I'm usually not an analytics guy, but I really hope the analytics guys just pull up the stats and like, Ty, look at the numbers. Terrence, man, he just makes the team better. And Ty's like, you know what? We have him to guard the point of attack. Problem solved. And by the way, Kawhi Leonard, they asked him about playing the 4. Justin Russo asked him. That was a good question. And Kawhi said, I actually have the quote. He said, I don't know what position I've been playing, over the last 6 or 7 years. It's really a positionless league. And he's right about that. That's exactly what I've been saying. So there's this rumor that Kawhi doesn't want to play the 4. Of course, as I've said, I would take a lot of these comments with a grain of salt. But Kawhi seems to realize, he does play the 4 in games. Starting the game at the 4, it just looks crazy because it's, people are still looking at it from the lens of 90s, 80s, 2000s, 2010s. This is a different era. Tobias Harris starts at the 4. Jason Tatum starts at the 4. Kawhi can do it, and he knows he can do it. He just said he doesn't know what position he's played because and Ty keeps downplaying positions too. Someone asked about whether KJ Martin, do you plan on using him as a 3, a 4, or 5? I think it was Adam Ostlund of AM5. We're AM 570. Yeah, AM 570. And he asked him about what position you see him in. And Ty Lue said he's played small ball 5. First of all, he's 6'6". That concerns me a little. But he said he's a basketball player, which again is promoting the positionless basketball lens that the modern NBA is viewed from by coaches. And you got to start thinking that way too as a fan. Kawhi at the 4, Terrence at the 2. I will be so happy. I think we're going to win so many more games that way. Believe me, I really think it will because all it takes is a little bit of rhythm and a good mix to start something special. More about Media Day going to be coming up further along the week. Tomorrow's episode is going to be about 3 reasons why I think the Clippers are okay, even though they didn't get Drew Holiday. But for this one, let me know what you thought about the quotes from Media Day. Tell me anything that's on your mind. The season is really officially beginning, ladies and gentlemen. We are almost back watching Clipper basketball again. Let me know how you're feeling about it in the comments. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell for all things LA Clippers. You already know how it is. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports, and NBA history content. And, of course, you can find Locked On Clippers wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers!